Imagine this. You drive out to your peaceful lake cabin ranch for a quiet weekend. The place is supposed to be your escape, a retreat from the chaos of work, traffic, and city noise. But instead of peace, you find a nightmare waiting in the high form of a self-appointed HOA queen. She struts around as if she owns the whole community, inventing rules and forcing her neighbors to obey them. And then one day she crosses the line. She blocks your own driveway, trapping you from entering your own home, just because you don't follow her fake rules. But what she didn't know was that I'm not the kind of man who just sits back and takes it. When I bought my lake cabin, I thought I'd found heaven. The place was perfect. Towering pines, calm water glistening in the sunlight, and the sweet silence that only the countryside can bring. I had plans to fish, grill with my family, and just breathe in the peace I'd been missing. But like every story with a villain, mine had one too. Her name was Karen. Karen lived just down the road, in a bigger, fancier cabin, and while no official HOA existed in the area, Karen decided that wasn't good enough. She declared herself the HOA president, as if she had been elected to run the community. No vote, no papers, no authority. Just pure ego. At first, it was almost laughable. She would come by with a clipboard and say things like, "You'll need to repaint your mailbox. The color doesn't match the neighborhood aesthetic." Or, "That fishing boat of yours? You need to cover it at all times. It makes the place look sloppy." I chuckled the first few times and simply told her no. "This is my property, Karen. I'll make my own rules." The smile that spread across her face when I refused wasn't normal. It was the kind of grin you see when someone silently vows to make your life miserable. Her little intrusions grew worse over time. I'd come back from a weekend trip to find passive-aggressive notes taped to my door. "You're lowering property values. The community expects better. We will enforce standards." We? Who was we? The truth was, there was no we. There was only Karen, but she carried herself like she was judge, jury, and executioner of the neighborhood. I ignored her as best I could. I was there for peace, not drama. But Karen wasn't the type to stop when ignored. Ignoring her only fueled her obsession with control. And then came the day she went too far. One morning I drove my truck back from the lake after an early fishing trip. The mist was still hanging low over the water, and I was ready for a good breakfast at the cabin. But when I turned onto my gravel driveway, my jaw nearly hit the floor. Parked directly across the entrance was Karen's massive SUV. She had blocked the entire driveway, and she was standing there, arms crossed, sunglasses on, chin lifted like she was about to deliver a royal decree. "Karen," I said, stepping out of my truck, "move your car." She didn't budge. She didn't even blink. Instead, she barked out, "You need to understand something. These are community rules. You can't keep your boat here, and you can't use the driveway until you join the HOA." I stared at her in disbelief. "Karen, there is no HOA. There never has been." But she just smirked. "Oh, there is. And I'm the president." I took a deep breath. "Listen carefully. This is my cabin. This is my driveway. And your car is leaving now." She tilted her head back and let out a mocking laugh. Good luck getting past me. Most people would have called the police. That would have been the civilized thing to do. But I knew Karen. She thrived on confrontation and confusion. She would twist the story, claim I was harassing her, and buy herself more time. So instead, I climbed back into my truck, started the engine, and slowly pressed the gas. At first, Karen thought it was an empty threat. She stood there with that smug grin, convinced I wouldn't dare. But when the bumper of my truck touched the back of her shiny SUV, her face changed instantly. Her smirk vanished. Her eyes widened. For the first time, she realized I wasn't bluffing. I pressed the horn, long and loud. The sound echoed through the trees, and she stumbled back, screaming something I couldn't hear over the noise. Then I pushed forward. Her SUV groaned against the weight of my truck, tires scraping across, gravel as I shoved it to the side. The sound of metal against stone cut through the air. I didn't stop until my truck was back on my property, parked in my own driveway, exactly where it belonged. Karen stood frozen, mouth open, watching me disappear behind the cabin walls. The very next day, I decided it was time to make things official. I called the county sheriff. When he arrived, I laid out everything, every fake note, every demand, and now the driveway blockade. I showed him the records that proved this land was never under any HOA. The sheriff shook his head and gave a little laugh. I've heard of HOA drama before, but this is new. Then he looked at me seriously. Don't worry. If she blocks your property again, it won't be your problem. She'll be the one sitting in a cell for trespassing. It felt good to finally have the law on my side. But I wasn't done yet. I wanted to make sure this never happened again. So, I hired a crew and had a solid steel gate installed at the entrance of my driveway. Heavy, unbreakable, locked at all times. And across the front of it, I bolted a giant wooden sign painted in bold black letters, "Private property, Karen is banned." From that day forward, Karen had no power left. She would drive by every morning on her way out, her eyes darting toward my gate. But she never dared to slow down, never dared to challenge me again. Subscribe to QZ Stories